after you give birth and those next 24 hours can be really critical and really confusing. And while my specialty is birth, I actually have a perfect expert to go to today to get some real trustworthy information about the first 24 hours breastfeeding. She has her own channel on YouTube that you definitely should check out. I'm going to put all the links below. Her name is Allison Tolman. Her channel is New Little Life. Allison Tolman is an IBCLC, which is an internationally board certified lactation consultant. That's the highest level of expertise you can get in the breastfeeding field. Definitely an expert. She's also a licensed practical nurse. She's a birth doula, a certified childbirth educator. She's a mom of 3 boys herself, and she is the perfect person to go to with all of my questions about the first 24 hours. Okay, Allison, I think as soon as you're finished with giving birth, it's like the next hard stage begins. You think, okay, I did it, done, baby is out. But really, sometimes an even bigger, more confusing challenge, I feel like, starts, right?
Yes. I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would love to talk about like those first 24 hours. What are those? What do we need to know? What are the main things to think about in those first hours? And I know the question I get as a doula all the time is, when should you do the first latch? Like, is it immediately? Is there a time frame? What are your best recommendations on this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I worked as a doula for a while too. So I've gotten to see that first hour, especially a lot of times. And ideally, the first latch happens within that first hour. Now, that can be a little different depending on how your birth goes, right? So if you had a C-section, your first hour is going to look a little bit differently than someone who had a vaginal, uncomplicated birth. If you're at home, that even looks a little bit different too. So but ideally within that first hour. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is because that's when the baby is most alert and the mom too. So your hormones are kind of got you on this high, you and baby. And in that first hour, you're riding it. You can latch on and the baby's awake and alert. After that first hour, both of you kind of crash a little bit. And so it can be a little more tricky because you're both tired and exhausted. But don't feel pressure to start that latch right away. Definitely give yourself a moment to breathe. You do not have to deliver that baby and then stress about getting that latch, right? The first hour feels longer sometimes. So take a breath, enjoy that baby. Finish up. You can often deliver the placenta and things like that. You can also feed the baby while that's happening, but just let it happen.
So if we're that first latch within the first hour, what about how often in the first 24 hours are we thinking is right for feeding the baby?
I know that's a really big concern for mothers. How do I know my baby's getting enough milk? Like, I want to feed my baby so they can
Right.
grow. And we recommend feeding on demand. So that just means whenever the baby is hungry, even if they just ate 10 minutes ago, if you're getting hunger cues from them, we allow them to eat again. And in the first 24 hours and few days, babies will eat a lot. So colostrum is your first milk that you have, and it comes in really small quantities, but it is rich in nutrients and fats. It is also digested very quickly. So the baby only needs a few drops of colostrum to feel full and get the nutrients that they need, but you're going to have to feed them more often because it's so easy to run through their system. So you definitely have milk in the beginning. It's just colostrum. It's the first milk. And so we feeding as often as they want is really going to bring in your milk supply and be the best for the baby going forward. If you want a number, typically babies eat 8 to 12 times in 24 hours. All right. So you can do the math there and you're like, okay, every 2 hours I need to feed the baby. But specifically with babies, that first 24 hours, it's probably going to be more than that. Smaller feedings, but often. And that's very normal. So really feeding on demand is the best thing you can do in those first few days with a newborn.
Knowing that it's a small quantity is helpful, right? Just like it's
Mhm.
not, the turnover in their stomach, right? It fills up, empties, fills up, empties. And so that's
Exactly.
Yeah, super normal. I think sometimes also it's hard, and even like those 24 hours are so new, and trying to learn everything and thinking, I'm feeding every hour, or, what's going on constant, that sometimes people project like this is my new reality for the next year,
Well, I'm never gonna do anything else ever again. Yeah,
Right, right. And so it's good to know like this is the beginning. This is not always going to be like this.
sure.
But yeah,
Exactly.
this it can be difficult, but yeah. So how do are there any like I'm one that if I can like check, okay, I'm doing it right. This happened, that happened. Are there things that are good signs to know that we're getting this breastfeeding journey off to a good start?
Mm. I I really like how you phrase that question. How do I know that I'm doing things right? And I think moms get caught up in that word a lot. And if
Mhm.
there was one right way to do this, I would absolutely tell it to you right now so that you could check them off and be like, I nailed it. But there's not really one right way. So take comfort in that, knowing that you can do what's best for you and your baby and feel good about it. A couple of things you can watch for though is breastfeeding really shouldn't be painful. Now, to be honest, it does take a little bit of learning curve. It's not always like roses and butterflies. But if you're having pain, sharp pain, cracks on your nipples, bleeding, things like that, sores, that's not normal. And we need to fix that. It might be a little tender while you get used to something sucking on your nipples all day long, but it should not be painful. So if you're feeling relatively comfortable, that's a good sign. Also, your baby wanting to eat often is another great sign. So don't think that you don't have enough milk or that things are going wrong because your baby wants to eat a lot. That's actually a good sign that they're wanting more and more. And so you're doing things right by feeding them a lot. If you gave birth in a hospital, definitely utilize the lactation consultant,
Mhm.
even if it's just to say, I would like you to come and watch this to make sure we're doing it right. They will do that. And I love doing that as a lactation consultant, being able to say, you're nailing it, feel great about it, and keep on. Like it's great. And if there's something that we need to work on, we can talk about that too. If you have a home birth, your midwife can help you with that, or there's lactation consultants in your area. So I would definitely utilize the help that you have, especially in the beginning, even if it's just for reassurance. Someone can look at you and say, you're doing great. And then you'll feel confident.
What are some, on the other hand, what are some signs that we should get help? I know you mentioned with pain.
Yeah,
Are there any other things that, kind of should alert us or the partner should be looking for to see
sure.
we need to get some help here? Yeah.
Yeah, pain is a big one. Pain during or after breastfeeding,
Mhm.
not normal. Okay. Cracks, blisters, or other nipple concerns. It should look relatively the same shape as it did when it went in. Probably out a little bit more, which is normal, but it shouldn't look like a tube of lipstick with a flat side. The latch, something isn't quite right. If your baby is lethargic or not eating well, so they're really sleepy, they are sleepy in the first 24 hours, I'll tell you that. But if you're just like, I cannot get this baby to feed, it's been 6 hours, I'm trying, that's a problem. Their diaper output is also a great way to tell that things are going in, right? What goes in must come out. So they should be having the appropriate amount of diaper output. And we can put a link to a chart down below if you want that.
Okay, so this is what I hear from people a lot, that while they're at the hospital, they have different, shifts of nurses, and that they get different information in that 21st 24 hours about like how long to feed baby on each side, or,
Sure.
what are cues to look for. Or it's just, I feel like sometimes people get worried about hearing different things from their nurses, and that it sometimes can get that new parent like in a loop of like, well, which nurse was right and what should I do? Do you
Yeah.
have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great thing. I think that absolutely does happen, and you're gonna get that not only from the nurses, but from friends and family and even lactation professionals. Like, I've, talked with mothers that are like, "My other lactation consultant said this," and I'm like, "Well, that's probably not what I would recommend," you know? So you're gonna get this in a wide variety of places. And again, I'm gonna go back and tell you that there's not one right way to do
Mhm.
this. There really is not, and I'm being honest, there's
Yeah.
not a golden standard that you're missing. So take things with a grain of salt and realize. So if we're talking about nurses, for example, they all come with their own specific lanes of expertise. Maybe they had a baby that really struggled with this one problem, them personally. And so they're really focused on, you need a nipple shield. Like that's how you breastfeed. But
Yeah.
that might just be kind of where their experience lies. I mean, you just kind of have to trust your gut a little bit, which I know is not the best answer because you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. But take all this information, you and you know your baby and you know what's best for your family. So take it all in and find a provider that you trust though. So, a nurse, you don't have a lot of control over. Your nurse is in the
Mhm.
hospital, but a lactation consultant, find one that feels good to you. Find one that you click with and that you trust, and then go from there. And I can 100% guarantee that you will make a mistake, that you will do something not ideally. And that's just parenthood. I mean, there's nothing unique about breastfeeding that is that you're going to do something in an unideal way. And that just is what it is. So you just learn and you move on. So have some grace with yourself, but really take in the information and do what feels best for you.
You've got those first 24 hours under your belt. What you're probably thinking of next is how does the next week go? Which Allison has an awesome video over on her channel about the next week that you can find right here. And don't forget to check out the rest of her information and subscribe to her channel. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.